Welcome back to Box Delights. In this film, I want to show you a game called Martians, Story of Civilization. What you're looking at here is a Kickstarter preview. This is a prototype. I don't do paid reviews, by the way, if anyone wonders, I never do. This is just a game that I like the look of and said, yeah, let's show this to our viewers. When you look at the Kickstarter campaign, you'll see that there's also some miniatures available on a deluxe edition. In particular, you'll find some 3D buildings, first player token, that kind of stuff. The other thing to mention is that this game it's unusual because it is hard worker placement. I've got the board set up here, and you can see that there's spots on the board for placing workers. Some of those are blocked out at the beginning of the game. In effect, what you've got is buildings that are under construction or not constructed. But what's interesting about it is there's different modes of play. You can play purely competitive, you can play purely cooperative, or you can even play a semi-cooperative. This is what they call the co-op competitive version. All right, it's basically semi-cooperative. You're all trying to work towards the same end, but there's one ultimate winner. And there's also a solo mode in here as well. What I want to do today is just demo the gameplay. Basically, each player in the game is a corporation sent to colonize Mars. So we're going to be working together to colonize Mars, developing technologies, constructing buildings, mining for resources. These are residencies for our astronauts. In the co-op, semi-co-op modes, you're working to resolve scenarios. I've just got one sample scenario here. It has a mission target. So in this case, and what I'm going to demo for you, it says, at the end of the fourth round, residential accommodation and a technical building must be developed. Moreover, it's necessary to provide a new settlement with a reserve of water, food and energy. So you can see you're trying to build those scenario elements that allow the colonization of Mars. In the semi-co-op version, we're trying to make this scenario, but where each of our corporations, each player is earning a reputation. You know, who's developing the most stuff, who's contributing the most, and they'll become the overall winner. In the competitive game, instead, you have these individual commission cards, and in here, instead of trying to resolve a scenario, you're trying to resolve these individual commissions and earn your reputation this way with a single overall winner. So in the purely competitive game, you're not working together at all to try and meet a scenario objective. You're trying to fulfill these contracts, these commission cards. Let me just give you a quick overview of what you see here. I mean, it's a wonderfully expansive map. It's got that "this is Mars" look about it already. Let me give you a quick run through of what's here. I'm going to play through the first round of the game, and then I'm going to come back and show you the second round of the game and how all these things interact and what gameplay looks like. So starting at the top of the map, these are the astronaut quarters. Okay, this is where they're resident. So there's 4 quarters. This plays up to 4 players, so it's 1 to 4. All of these 4 quarters are going to be available irrespective of the player count, but the whole map's going to be seeded differently depending on the player count. Then we've got these different buildings which have worker placement spots. So here we've got a generator, a hospital. This marker here says that it's not constructed yet. This one is under construction. Okay, so you can see the generator's got 3 spaces for workers. Nothing yet. So the hospital can't be used just yet. And then over here you've got something that adds a lot of depth to the game, the training centre or the education centre, where, again, these have been seeded. You can pick up these different roles. We've got a pharmacist, an engineer, a medic. So these experts also have assistants, so we've got a botanist, geologist, and a scientist here. Okay, different physicists perhaps. And like I say, some of the wording is yet to be finalised. Further down, we've got other constructions going on. We've got a lander here with some research tiles. We've got a wind farm. We've got some greenhouses, solar panels, and dominating the map is this mine, this area of tiles in the middle here that we've randomised. There's a few tiles that face up. These will give you different types of resources. We've got an excavator digging up regolith and dirty ice. All right, so there's no open water here on Mars, but you can dig for underground ice and underground minerals, that these minerals are then translated into this deck here, which shows you actual real resources that you're gathering. This is just randomized. And as we play, we're going to be needing these types of resources to build more buildings, to keep our life support systems running, to be able to grow crops and generate drinking water. You get the idea. Keep a colony running up here on Mars. So I'm going to play through the first round. The reason why I'm doing this is, for the first round, everyone's healthy, we've got stocks of food. From round 2 onwards, we're going to see new elements of the game coming into play. One of the first things I'll do on round 1 is think about these oxygen tokens. Any oxygen tokens here need to be cleared. We can't breathe in this residence, this quarter, until we clear those oxygen markers. We also probably want to think about water production, getting some water going. So turning dirty ice into fresh drinking water is always a good idea. Welcome back. We've just finished the end of round 1, and let's kind of change the shape of the board a little bit. We've got some stuff out here. We've managed to do a little bit of quarrying here. We've got some reputation moving on up the track, so green's out ahead quite considerably right now, primarily for building the education centre here, which has given her 3 reputation, and also for completing one of the objectives over here as well. But blue, on the other hand, has managed to develop some solar panels, got improved crops, so they've kind of set themselves up a little bit more for future turns. Just before we dive into gameplay, I just want to cover quickly one of the major differences between those different modes of play. If you're playing cooperatively, remember we had cooperatively, semi-co-op or competitively. If you're playing cooperatively, there's a single pool of resources that the players collect, and all players can access that pool of resources. They can use the technologies that they've developed. So for example, we've got solar cells, DNA alteration. If you're playing semi-co-op, you can't. Everything that you keep and you gather is yours, and yours alone, and the same for competitive. Okay, let's dive into round 2. The first phase is called supplementation phase. This is the phase that skipped in round 1, and this is why I've jumped you straight into round 2 really. We have these population tokens. If you have the population control technology, then you're going to add these to the player's quarters. Okay, new babies are arriving. But what we are going to do is we're going to spread hunger, disease, and a need for oxygen across those living quarters. So it's 4 hunger, 2 disease, and 2 oxygen. And you just place these from left to right. So 1 oxygen, 1 oxygen, 1 disease, 1 disease, and then 1 hunger. There's 4 hungers. You'll find that these are a multiplier of player count. So that's how the difficulty of the game is scaling up with player count. Next up, we're going to have an event that triggers and a weather that changes. And there's a reminder here on the turn or the track. So before turn 1, the first thing we do is we pull out a new event. There's a stack of event cards for each round. This was for round 1. Now in round 2, this is our round marker. So as we go through the rounds, there's only going to be 4 rounds in the game here. And then we move this round token on and shows us which deck to pull our events from. Okay, this one says sunburst. Reports from Earth about sunbursts give us little time to return to the safe zones, protecting us against lethal cosmic radiation. Consequences: all players remove their action markers from the board. In this turn, each player has 1 less time for their actions. I'll explain this to you as we get into it, but basically each round there's 3 turns. We do have the capacity to move to a 4th turn, but for most part it's 3 turns. Every turn a player has what we call 3 time. They can spend actions. Different actions will take different amounts of time. So they'll be placing workers, and each one of those workers' activities is going to cost time. So that's an ongoing effect. The good news is we do get to retrieve all our workers from the board. These are workers that we've used in round one. What's interesting here is, you know, in most worker placements, when you place your workers, there's a phase when all the workers come off. You actually have to spend an action in this game to pull your workers back off the board. So your workers can actually fill and block points on the board until you choose to take that action. It's called the recreation action. You pull your workers back off the board. The blue player had already done that, so their workers are already here. Now, in the interest of demoing, I'm actually going to change things up. Let's change it up for fire, because I want to give you the full, this is what normally happens type effect. So fire says there's only one place available in the laboratory until the end of the round. Next we go to the weather phase. I'm going to change the weather. The game started with stable weather, no effects. Then we had a sandstorm, which was impacting our ability to produce crops and energy from wind farms and solar panels. Just grab a new card, see what the weather is for the next 2 turns, when just before turn 3 we're going to do this again. Sun activity, it says. Well, that's good, because this is actually going to give us a bonus. Next steps, we've done event, weather, now we have energy production. And one, the blue player used the object building, this construction action, to place a solar panel and build a solar panel. So they're the ones who are going to get the benefit of this solar panel. So we've got 2 energy from here, plus the bonus from sun activity. So it's actually 3 energy. And there's potentially bonuses here from things like your solar cells that you can build here at the education centre, which, or the training grounds, the training centre. The other additional thing that you do at the start of the round is, with that education centre, more training becomes available. We have 1 new expert. These are face up, by the way, because you can pick and choose which ones you want. And 1 assistant geologist is good. And we also get 2 research tiles, which are these. This is the way you're going to convert your minerals into extra funding. So you're sending back like these types of stuff that you've collected. I'll show you that too. If we were playing competitively, we'd also get some more missions that you could then go and try and complete, or commissions rather, contracts to fulfill. And now players get their colonists back. So blue and green, they've each got 3 colonists at the moment. If you suffer hunger, disease, lack of oxygen, then these things are going to die and you're going to have less turns. These basically say, I've got 3 tokens, 1 to be used each turn. If you haven't got colonists, you're not going to be able to take actions on a turn. Blue was first player in round 1, so we're just going to move the first player marker down to green. So green's going to kick things off. And one thing we are short of is energy as the green player, but there is a little safety net for this. There is a generator here which can generate energy. Unfortunately, it suffered a fault in round 1, but normally it contains a little supply that's limited for the game of energy. So I'm just going to put some back there just to show you how this works. You can do this once per round at a cost of just 1 reputation. It's not considered an action, you don't have to pay with time. All you do is you go off to this radioisotope thermoelectric generator, grab yourself some energy and store it in your supply. And I'm just going to put a token over here just to show I've used it this round. When I'm filming stuff, it's easy to forget things. So I've still got 3 workers and I lose 1 rep and 3 time. But it's very key now, I think, for green to get some energy. So something like the wind farm would be good. Here's the building, the construction centre here. And to build a wind farm is this one. It's going to cost 1 time, 1 energy, 1 red resource, these are regoliths, and 1 black cube is 1 supply. Okay, we've got everything apart from this red one. So where do we get these from? We have to go and quarry. This is where the excavation marker is currently standing. Now we can excavate on the tile we're currently on. And we can take 2 resources. There's 2 blue and there's 2 red here, so we can choose which to take. Whether we want to take 2 regolith or 2 dirty ice, or 1 of each. Yeah. Or we can move the excavator 1 space. If we choose to move it, that's fine. If we choose to dig here we then have to move it. You always have to move it, but either before or after you dig. Well, I'm going to stay here and I'm going to take 2 regoliths, 2 red. So I place a worker in an empty slot. It's going to cost me 1 time, 1 energy. 1 time, 1 energy. Okay. So we just take our resources, 2 red. There's no reputation to be earned here, but we do have an optional second action you can take here. It still costs the same worker, but what you can do, for every regolith that you excavate, you can chuck it on this little trundly thing here. Chug, 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 goes through and crunches it up, and yeah, we get to examine and see what's in that rock. So there's an extra time action. So it doesn't cost an action, just 1 extra time. Let's do that. I'll pass these time tokens over to the next player so they're ready for their turn. But 1 time left after this. I drew 2 pieces of regolith, so I can examine 2. So I get to draw 2 cards from this deck here. Obviously, if you're playing cooperatively, then you'll want to share the contents of this. If you're playing competitively, keep it secret. So far, well, that one's worth nothing. There was nothing in that piece of rock. I do have these, so I am interested in converting these into something useful now. So that's excavation complete. Now remember, I've got to move the excavator. Okay. Now let's say I moved it over here. The tile that I excavated gets removed from the game. Okay. And then I can reveal every tile adjacent to the excavator. You can start to get a feel for where the good resources are. Now I can convert these at the landing pad. Okay, I can go to the landing pad, pay my time, pay my worker. I'm going to take 1 worker. Here's my landing pad. And for X amount of time, I've just got 1 time left. This one costs 2 time. I've got green and brown. So this one here. Remember, these all face up so you can search your way through them. I'm going to trade in 1 brown mineral and 1 unit of time and collect $8. Okay, this is probably $8 million. So this gets discarded, this gets discarded. I can take a heap load of cash. That cost me 1 time, so I've run out of time. I still have a worker left. I still have quite a few resources left. So there may still be things I can do that don't cost actions, don't cost time. So I might, for example, take some of my hard-earned money, grab my final worker, and head over to the education centre to recruit. I think I want something like the botanist, or maybe the pharmacist. I think the pharmacist. And we can place her here. We've got 2 spots for experts, 2 spots for assistants. I can use these once per round. This one's going to turn 1 supply and 1 water into medicine. Okay. I can't use it yet because I don't have any water. I've got to turn these into water. Okay, but I do have a stack of money to. It's going to cost me $4 to use this ability. I think that's all I'm going to do. So I'll take one of my colonists and place him up here on. We're in turn 1 on the turn track. Now these colonists can bring 2 supplies with them. Food allows you to satisfy hunger. Medicine allows you to satisfy diseases. Now it's blue player's turn, and let's grow some crops. Let's harvest some crops. Try and get some food. So we're going to take one of our workers, place it in the greenhouses. It's going to cost 1 time, and there's 2 actions here. We can either do this one, which is harvest the crops, or we can plant and cultivate crops. And what that means is we can get to take one of these tokens. We've already taken this one, so we could upgrade to this one and replace our personal farm. Because what harvest does is it says basically give 1 water, 1 energy, and turn them into 2 food. Our water purifying station hasn't been built yet, so let's build it. And we're going to do that using object building. We need energy, regolith, and supplies. We don't have any supplies, so let's send our worker to the landing pad as well. There's a spot here. And for 2 time we can take 2 supplies, or for 1 time we can take 1 supply. I'm going to take 2 supplies for 2 time, I think. And then I'm going to send a worker to the excavation site as well. I'm going to take 2 red from here. Let's take 2 red. And then we'll move this way. Uncover. Yeah, that gets discarded. And now I've run out of time. Now, this is the thing, you say, well, why don't you go and do some education, pay some money, recruit someone? There is a second action field here, so I can place a worker here, but it's only partially constructed. This means if I place a worker here, it's going to cost me 1 time unit as well. So even though I've got 1 worker left, I've used all my time. Okay, so I'm going to end my turn here as well. Now remember, I can bring 2 units with us, food or medicine. So we'll grab that, bring it with us. And we can then say 1 food turns into satisfying 1 hunger and 2 reputation. So I can remove one of these, I'll take it from here. Food is discarded and blue gains 2 reputation. And now we're heading into turn 2. Okay, so that's the basic flow of the game. It plays really quickly and really neatly, and you've only got 4 rounds and 3 turns on each round. So let me just show you some of the other features of the game. Obviously, you should figure out already that energy is the core currency of the game. You really need to concentrate on getting those wind farms early. You're going to start with 4 energy if you're playing 2-player. Getting that water farm, let's say this is built for 1 time, 1 energy. You can convert this dirty ice into 2 water cubes, and those water cubes are going to be valuable. Green doesn't have any action tokens left, so that's where they have to. You see, they've got their 3 on the board. This is where you have to take as 1 for 1 time. You can take that recreation and get all your workers back, freeing up those spots. So, one of your 3 times now gone, but they can then place their worker, start placing things again. You do lose action tokens if your workers are hungry, or your colonists are hungry. Then your workers have to go and spend their time here until you can free them up again. So it's a constant battle of trying to keep on top of this, what's going on in the quarters, in the living quarters, and trying to develop those technologies. But once you've got your water, now you can start using energy to turn water and energy into food. And with food, then you can satisfy hunger. Remember, all the time too, as long as just keeping on top of this stuff, you're trying to satisfy that scenario goal. And again, it's an action on the landing pad, plenty of spaces here, and it costs 1 time to complete 1 scenario. So you go over to your scenario card, and you can see this one, the updated schedule costs 1 energy, 1 regolith, 1 supply. You get 3 reputation, and then you can place one of your player tokens on this scenario. So if you're playing 3 or 4 player, you'll get these 2. We need 2 here. And we also need to fill this with food, water, and energy. So 3 more missions to satisfy our scenario. So there's a lot of opportunities there for getting victory points, or what we call reputation here. Technologies are really valuable. We've not built the lab yet, and we've got this one that says only 1 of these action fields is available. These are the technologies that you can learn, and the time is given by your player card. So we've got long crane, allowing you to excavate 1 tile away from the excavator. Weather report costs 1 time. It allows you to look at the top card of the weather deck to see what weather's coming. DNA alteration, if you were to research this one. So every time you get one of these technologies, you put one of your tokens on, okay? DNA alteration gives you an extra time every turn. Solar cells gives you extra energy. kinetic power, extra energy, and then molecular sensor. You can take an extra regolith card when you're examining the rocks, so you can extract more out of those minerals. I really like this game. I like the depth that we've got here. I like the fact that we are actually colonizing a planet, and it feels like a Civ game as well. You're actually building stuff and you're gathering resources and, you know, building out this map. And then of course, as your events move on, as you get up through the rounds, these things become more and more difficult and more challenging from you. So Valve's extra oxygen tokens arriving, throw away their markers of drinking water. The water's poisoned. Well, I hope you enjoyed this quick look at the prototype of Martians, A Story of Civilization. Look out for it on Kickstarter. If you're watching this retrospectively, I hope this has given you a good introduction to the game and what this is all about. Thanks for watching.